Oh, it's Friday morning, just about 10 Eastern time, and it means that it's time for relaxing painting, taping, cementing, and sometimes going, oh no, with Dyson Dungeons. I'm not sure how today is going to go, not because of the parts that I'm working on, but it was one of those days, nights. One of the smoke alarms decided that it would be great fun to go off at a little after 3 this morning, and they're all kind of linked together, so it was very loud, and it woke us up, and we couldn't. I mean, smoke alarms go off. It's really pretty scary. So we just checked the entire house and couldn't see anything wrong, except for the one that's down here, up there, was signaling that it had gone off, that it had detected smoke, although there is nothing here in this room where I am, to set it off, and then the little light flash that said it was a false, so I don't know. What I do know for sure is that we all woke up at a little after 3 and we're just really awake. And after we, found out that we didn't have to abandon the house, couldn't get to sleep, and so you'll have to excuse me if I don't talk very much today, or if at some point I just have to give up on working on the little fiddly bits of the service module and try something else that doesn't require as much focus, I'll call it. Coffee might help. So I might need more than one of these today. What I'm working on, just as a recap, is the Apollo stack. Okay, this is the assembly instructions. I show this picture rather than the box top. The box top is a much better picture, but this one is small enough to show on the camera. So there. I have completed the escape tower module, and I'm working on the service module now. And the service module opens up. There is a door that opens to show off the interior of the service module. And then there's 3 pieces to the shell. Yeah, I keep going, I hear that a lot. So this is getting really close to being done, and I'll show that to you in a bit. What I'll be working on next, depending on how things are going, is I'm probably going to work on the shell down here, the containment unit for the lunar excursion module. These are really nice big pieces. They need to be painted gray-green on the inside because that's the color of the inside of most of this. It's kind of like primer, I guess. And then the outside is painted white. And you'll be seeing the white in a moment as I take a look at the things that I spray painted yesterday, and I hope they came out okay, because otherwise there'll just be more work to do, right? So I'll probably work on these next. They're kind of boring pieces, but they're important. And then I'll work on the lunar excursion module, and then finally the command module. And then there's some astronaut figures that I get to put together as well. So as we look through the instruction manual here, these are interior components of the service module. See, there's another one, and these all come together to form the inside of it. And these are the tanks that show. Okay. And then one of the panels, this door is hinged, and there's some things that need to be attached to the inside of that panel. And then these 3 panels come together. The hinged one is not cemented, but the other two are. And these two are cemented into place. Then at the base of it, there's the rocket nozzle, this section here. And this is pretty much done. I need to do some touching up of the paint. This attaches to the inside of the base of the service module by friction on the cone of the top of the cone here of the rocket engine. And when I assembled this, I scraped some of the paint off. And I need to touch that up. I'll probably do that early on. So the bits that still need to be done, and there isn't very much, are, because there's three of them, are getting these little tanks, okay, attached to the inside of this door, that panel. It's a panel that opens, attaching these other panels to the service module. The hinged one goes on, and then this holds that in place. So attaching these, assembling this, and then the fiddly bits are attitude control rockets. You can see them here, these little dark colored things. So there's these are extremely tiny. They are like a grain of rice. And there are 4 of these brackets, and each one has 4 of these little reaction control jets that attach to it. And these are all painted and they're ready to go. But it's just going to be hard to do because not only are they tiny, okay, but they also, these pins are not as big as they look on the picture. And they're not big enough, they're not long enough to hold these perfectly in line. In fact, they're not even dowel shaped, they're kind of cone shaped. And so I don't know how long it's going to take. I'm going to try model cement on this. I think contact cement would work really well, but these are so small that I can't get the very jelly-like contact cement onto the parts, I think, without it getting, like, spreading some. So I need to do this. I need to get these done. So I'll, today, assuming I stay awake and sort of focused, as I'll be working on putting these together. So the plan for today is to touch up the rocket, the very, very end of the rocket nozzle there, okay, where it makes contact with this plate or bulkhead. Check the spray painting on these parts. I spray painted them yesterday. I need to, before I unmask them, I want to make sure that the spray painting is even and that it covered all of the surfaces, because these are curved surfaces and they're a little bit hard to paint. So if it looks like it covered well, then I'll start unmasking them. There is an edge right up here, okay, the top of the service module where the command module sets. Once the model is done, all these components come apart so you can reenact the Apollo mission. But like most of these edges, like the bottom one, it's a 90-degree angle. So it was fairly easy to tape it. I think the edge will come out okay, but this was not. This is flared on the top. And if the edge did not come out well, okay, like if it's ragged or uneven, or worse yet, if each of these 3 were painted separately, right? If it doesn't match up on all 3 of them, then I'm going to have to spend some time either touching up if that's possible, or remasking and respraying until I get the edge right. So I don't know. This could either be I'll take the masking tape off and it's ready to go, or I could take the masking tape off and there's like 1 or 2 spots where I need to just get some of that gray-green paint on to even out a place where the tape might have pulled away from the surface a little bit. I will do a flip. Or I might need to just like scrape paint off the edges and remask and respray both colors. I don't know. I really don't know. I'm a little bit concerned about that. So the unmasking and seeing how good or bad it is, if it's looking good, then I'll install these tanks and I'll be able to, once those set, so I know they're not going to fall off, I'll be able to assemble the shell, the out exterior panels of the service module. Let's see how that goes. So touching up the rocket nozzle, unmasking at least I'm going to unmask the edge here first just to see what it looks like. Because if I have to respray some things, I want to leave the rest of it covered if I can. Assembling this and then working on these bits. Once these are put together, then they'll just be cemented into some little notches on the sides of the service module, and then that'll be done. So that's the plan today. I like to talk about what I'm planning to do so that when it gets done, you'll know that I was planning to do it. And sometimes you know that I was planning to do it, but it didn't work out. Because like on Wednesday, I had a major oops, a really big oops, where I tried to make something just tried to get some detail, I tried to detail something and it didn't work and it messed up the underlying paint and I had to remask and respray. I think I can get a flip in without hurting anything today. That was a good one. 2, 3, 4. There were 4 don't paints and 2 paints. Maybe that's telling me I shouldn't try to touch up the rocket nozzle. Anyway, let's start with opening the box here. What you can see in this box is the parts that are finished and the parts that are yet to be done. And this is my storage box for this because they're fairly tall. So this is the service module interior. Okay. And it's upside down because it sets better on that end. But there you can see the interior of it. This is the part that will show when the panel opens. These little slots here are where the hinges go. And the back end of this is going to be essentially invisible because the panels, the exterior panels, go all the way around this. And so I don't know why I bothered painting it even, but anyway, there it is. There's nice detail on the top there. Sorts of little conduits and wires and brackets and stuff, and detail on the bottom. These are the bottoms of propulsion tanks and all of the really important and unexplained tubing and piping that goes around from the tanks to, I'm guessing, the inside of the rocket engine. Okay. And again, I'm going to store this upside down because it's flat on this end and it wobbles on that on the other end. And then this bit here, you can see where the nozzle of the rocket comes out. It goes into this section and holds this in place by friction. And then this is a high gain antenna that is hinged that comes out. It's a light. Okay, so what needs to be touched up here is there's like a little spot, like right there. You can hardly see it there. That needs some steel paint on it. And then this is all scratched up because it is held by friction there. And I don't really like that. I mean, I don't like that it's all scratched up, but I'm not sure that not much can be done to avoid that. This is supposed to be held a little more tightly in place. I mean, when it comes down, it's supposed to stay out. Oh, okay. That would have been bad if I dropped that and grabbed that. I would have broken it off. So the first thing I'm going to do today is do the touch up on this. These are the tiny little tanks that get attached to the inside of the door, the opening panel here. And then these, you can see how minuscule they are, right? These are the 16 attitude control rocket nozzles that somehow need to be attached to the brackets. Yeah, so I put that aside. This is the paint that I need, steel colored paint, and I'm actually going to put my head magnifiers on because the one on the other side is not that critical, but the tiny little scratch on this side, I definitely do not want to get paint on the lighter colored bulkhead. I'm just going to shake this by hand. No, I'll use the vortex spinner. Maybe I'll get it to shake, get everything. There we go. I need so little of this that I'm not even going to squeeze any out. I am just going to use the little bits of paint that are in the bottle cap. I was using this last time. I was having a really hard time for a reason unexplained getting it in focus. Like I said, I don't know. You're just going to have a lot of dead air today, I think. Okay, that looks okay. Now I'm just going to, there's more touch up on this side. So what I'm hoping will happen after this is touched up is that there will be, when this is held in place by friction in the base, the service module, there are like 3 ridges there. 3 ridges that hold this. And where those ridges are, there will be like right there. You can see it. There's like a blot. Let me paint that out so you can see what I'm talking about. See, there's a white stripe. That's going to happen. There's like 3 of them that hold this in place, that squeeze it, right? And so if this goes in and out, those lines will appear because the paint will be scraped off. This kind of thing, this big white spot there, that won't. Now, this only fits out in one orientation because there's radiators here. You see these openings? Those match up with some radiators on the bottom of the service module. And so what should happen is that the paint will scrape off on 3 ridges. So there'll be like 3 vertical lines, like this one here. Okay, there's another one. Those will be there as kind of a permanent feature because that's just where it's being held in place. And the rest of this should be okay. That's the thought. And let's just see how that happens. But this is, okay, this is touched up. That antenna, I'm not sure what to do about that. I need to get this back in the box without, I'm going to keep these parts out. I do follow. Be right with you. I am putting parts away. There we go. Taking this off. Thank you for the follow. That's really cool. Thanks so much. And a new follow and a new chat. I will recap about and explain what I'm doing and what the show is about. First of all, I'll also repeat why it is that I am exceptionally fuzzy. This morning, we had a fire alarm go off in the house at a little after 3 this morning, which, needless to say, got our attention. Yeah, it got our attention and woke us up. And after a thorough search, we found nothing other than that the smoke detector that's actually in the room here, this very room, was the one that had gone off, and it was signaling both that it detected smoke and that it was in a state of fault. Both of those signals were going off. So that was confusing. We did a thorough search here to make sure. Teenagers know. It just, the thing just went off. In fact, it was the second time in 2 days it had gone off during the day. And it went on for maybe about 15 seconds and then stopped. And so after a thorough search, there's just no reason why. So all I can think of is that the detector itself is faulty. Anyway, when the smoke alarm goes off in the middle of the night, it gets your attention, and we were up. And then it was very difficult to get back to sleep after that. So buttons, I guess. But the 1 mug of coffee might not be enough today. So I'm working on, well, I'll show it to you again. I think you can highlight it. This is the service module, and it's really close to being done. This is the box that's holding the parts. This is the interior of the service module, and here is a hinged panel that opens up to show this. And this is the bottom, the rocket nozzle thing here. I was just touching up, attaches to the bottom of this and held on by friction so that it can come out, because this entire model is built so that a lot of the parts come apart so you can reenact the Apollo mission. I'll do that again. It's kind of fun to show how this all works. So this is a separate piece, basically, that fits on there. What needs to be done yet is I spray painted the outside of the panels that enclose the service module, and I need to look at those to see how they turned out, because I don't know, if the masking worked, it'll look really great, and if it didn't, I might have to redo some stuff. But getting those panels ready and done it'll go together pretty quickly. So there's that. But I think this came out really pretty well. I think it's really close to B+ work, because I'm not an expert model maker by any means. If I were, there would be things like, if you look way down at the bottom there, you behind the tank, see that kind of tab? Well, as part of the model, that tab goes into the slot as an alignment, right? But the real Apollo didn't have that. So if I were like an A+ master modeler, I would have filled that in and sanded it down so it would have been invisible. But I didn't do that. It's dust. I didn't do that because I don't have the kind of filler I don't have the skill to pull it off, and I didn't have the correct filler material. Anyway, that's why this is a B. This is a B+. I think the top of this and the bottom. But the interior is just a B. Anyway, I'm grading myself on the work that I'm doing, but I think it's looking good. It will be, if it's appropriately displayed under indirect, fairly dim lighting at a distance of at least 18 inches, it will look really excellent. Okay, under here, this is the let's see how this is going kind of thing. The first thing is, these are now painted in this kind of pearlescent white. And the first thing I'm doing is checking to make sure that all the surfaces, in fact, are painted. Because I have had that issue before of spray painting, and then not having it covered well. Like the inside of this is painted gray-green, and I had to do it twice because it just wasn't well done. But this is looking okay. These parts are looking okay. All right. The most critical part of these is this top edge, because the top edge is beveled. It's beveled, and so if the line is straight, if I have a really nice straight line along the top of this, and that straight line happens to match the other straight lines, because these things, come together. I'll show it to you in a minute. I'll take the top of this one and show you what I'm talking about. Initially, I'm just going to peel this back. Okay, I'm going to peel this back on all of the components. Let's see what I'm feeling. And what you can see here, see the bevel? Okay, is that the inside of the bevel needs to be painted gray-green. And then the very edge, just the edge of it, needs to be the white. And what we have here, as you can see, that a little bit of the white paint got in there. And I think that kind of thing, I think I can touch up with a brush. Okay. I'm going to just peel the rest of these back. I'm just peeling them back because if I need to redo it, I don't want to remask the whole thing. So this one, there's a tiny spot there. There, this one is actually a little better than the other one in terms of how it looks. And then here's the final. And just the top edge needs to be painted white. So if it is, it is, and that's good. There you can see. No, that's not. I don't know. I can't tell if that's white paint got kind of on there. I think there was a little overspray on that. That was a little. There's a notch there that needs to be touched up. All right. So what I'm seeing is good news. I'm seeing good news in that there's a little bit of gray-green touch-up that needs to be done on a couple of spots where the masking wasn't perfect. The edge here as well, it looks like. Okay, so I guess I can unmask these. That's a good thing. And then I can do the touch-up, the gray-green touch-up, and get tape sticking to my fingers. When I do the gray-green touch-up, then I can assemble them. So that's good news. The good news is that once I figure out the best way to get these to adhere to the interior of the service module, that is, which adhesive am I going to use and where am I going to apply it to minimize the possibility of it making a mess. Okay, yeah, I need to do a little touching up on the bottom here. The only parts of this that are going to show are above this ridge here and below this ridge. And so there's a little bit of gray-green touch up there too. I've had some success. It's not perfect, but I just spray some of that gray-green paint because it's a spray paint. The best way to have done this is with an airbrush and then with a bottle of paint, so that if I needed to do touch-up, I would just go to the bottle of the paint and paint it. But I can't use an airbrush because I'm not good at it. I'm really bad at it. And it isn't so much, so I'll just say this, it's not so much that I'm really bad at like pushing the little button at the top of the airbrush and aiming it and getting the paint, or even controlling the little nozzle to determine the width of the spray. That's not the part I'm bad at. What I'm really bad at is getting the paint into the little, managing the paint. It gets everywhere. Okay, I do not know what I'm doing wrong when I'm loading up the paint into the airbrush, or worse yet, trying to clean it. I ended up, the few times I tried it before I just gave up, when I just said, I'm not capable of pulling this off. It took like hours to clean up after the airbrushing mess. So I'm obviously doing something wrong, and reading the instructions and even watching a video it didn't do the job of teaching me to do it right. So what I really need is like a tutor, an on-site tutor. Okay, this one needs, I'm not sure this large piece actually even needs any touch-up. Tiny little bit there, maybe. So the way this goes on, if I remember correctly, is this panel goes here like this, except it's the same orientation. So there's going to be a seam where they don't line up perfectly. Okay. And I thought about, again, if I were like amazing master modeler, I would put this together and close up that seam and just with a filler and make it disappear. But I can't do that. I'm just not capable of doing that. A little touch up, a little touch up. I'm going to do them, put them down this way because I don't want to mar the surface. These are the brackets for those reaction control jets I was talking about. And you can see the tiny little pins on them, maybe, if I orient it right. Anyway, these little bitty things, 4 of them go on each of those. Okay, I'll take this apart. The inside of this door is painted gold. Not on the top, okay, but there. The inside of the door is painted gold, and this is the panel that is hinged. These are the hinges under all this tape. This is the panel that opens up, and these little bits there are where these little tanks are attached. So this one needs a fair amount of touching up. That came out okay. And I've gone through a lot of masking tape. I just ordered new masking tape. It's supposed to arrive like tomorrow or Monday. When I built models as a kid, spray paint was too expensive, so I didn't spray paint anything. So I never masked anything really, except for one model. It was one model, an F-106 Delta Dart that I painted, and with masking tape and spray paint, and it actually came out pretty well. What I discovered was that even if I didn't have an airbrush back then, couldn't even imagine having an airbrush. Didn't even know what an airbrush was, really. But I got a little can of model spray paint. Actually, yes, Scooby, putting these together is going to be a nightmare. Because my fingers don't work all that well. Tweezers don't work all that well because these pieces are round, and so there's no way to grip them without scraping up the paint. So they're going to go on one at a time, and then they need to be held in place long enough for the cement to set so that they don't sag. So they have to lining them up vertically is okay. That's easy. I just twist them back and forth. But lining them up in both axes and making sure that they're not sagging, because these are very highly visible components of the model. They go on the outside here in these slots. They're going to be, the submarine I built, if you look back at some of the old YouTubes of working on the submarine, if you can catch the episodes like the galley, kind of like in the middle of the assembly of the submarine, literally in the middle of the submarine, as well as the assembly process. It went from bow to stern, the assembly. You would see some really tiny pieces there too. But yeah, there was a lot more very, very small detail in the submarine, like control panels. Control panels that were maybe twice the size of one of these things, but on it might have like 4 dials and 6 buttons. And so painting the base of that and then painting the dials and the hands on the dials and the little buttons and things, there was a lot more tiny detail in terms of the painting, but there's a lot of little pieces here in terms of assembly. And some of them are real, like, delicate and fiddly, and none of the pieces fit. when you get them out of the box, they're all full of flashing and little ridge marks and molding flaws and stuff. Okay, well, these came out actually pretty well. They're going to require some touching up. And again, because I'm using spray paint instead of bottle paint with an airbrush, so I'm not doing it the right way, really. I am going to, okay, I'm going to use my not that favorite brush, but the brushes I really like. The spray paint has like, I think it's an acrylic, but it doesn't clean up that well. So I'm using my not the best brush. And so in order to do this, what I need to do is I need to spray paint down into a container like this. You can see I did some gray touch up, and I've done some gold touch up, and I've done some gray green touch up. This one's just, I don't know. The new paint, the solvent in the paint dissolves the paint, the old paint. So this one is now trash. Let's throw it on the floor and pick it up later, maybe, and use a new one. So the way I have to do this because of my lack of skill is spray a little bit of paint into one of these containers, and thinking ahead, okay, because it's particulate and things, I want to spray it in, not here, because I don't want to get it all over the outside of those. I might even cover them up just to like belt and suspenders that, right? But it needs to be done. There's some spots that just need to be touched up. And this is really the only way I have to do it. I've done it a little bit in the past. It doesn't level quite as nicely as just spray painting. You can see that there is an unevenness in the surface. Yeah, too. You can see the unevenness in the surface, but at least the color is consistent. There's that. There's the old dropping the brush trick. So I get some paint on here, and I'm just painting up to an edge. Oh, I should put my head magnifiers on for this. It's not just being able to see the detail, but there's additional light, and it really helps. It helps me see where I'm painting to have the extra light. Issue down here, it's kind of an unevenness in the plastic. When it was molded, it got molded with a ridge. I was thinking about what to do with my monologue today and have music in the background. That issue has not yet been successfully resolved. There's some sort of dispute with the Nakarada folks about the music. That hasn't been successfully resolved yet. And so there isn't any music playing. And so I need to fill the time with a monologue. And I've been talking about 60s, 50s and 60s television. Spent a lot of time talking about Gilligan's Island because of the massive changes that were made after the first season, where the theme song was changed, and apparently the location of the opening and closing credits actually changed as well. I thought that was kind of an interesting thing. No doubt that Bob Denver was a decent sort of guy, because he was the one who actually advocated for the Professor and Mary Ann to be included in the opening credits and the theme song instead of just being the rest. Spent all of like 5 minutes saying, and who was more powerful, Jeannie or Bewitched? Samantha. Who was more powerful, Jeannie or Samantha? And that was it. Didn't want to go any further. It was like, really, who can tell? Would we have like a contest? And what would the contest entail? Time travel, translocation, transmogrification. Really, how would you know? Here too. So that didn't go anywhere. That wasn't really a very productive thing to talk about. So while I was trying to get back to sleep after the fire alarm went off at 3 a.m, it was actually like 3:15, I think. Doesn't matter. It was very disturbing. Kept us up for a while. Okay, well, that's going to be good enough. And this one, I don't think. Yeah, it is to make some changes. The big change, of course, was going from black and white to color. I mean, technically, that was, and for the viewer, that was the biggest thing. The biggest thing for the cast was the Professor and Mary Ann getting opening credit billing in the change in the theme song. But, one can only ramble on in this stream about Gilligan's Island so long before the rambler actually gets bored with it. Now, this piece came out, I shouldn't say that, okay? I shouldn't say that this piece came out surprisingly well, considering its size and all, and how much surface needed to be masked, but it did come out surprisingly well. Touched up as much as needs to be. Some of these shows went on for just ever, And I think in growing up, it seemed like it. Gilligan's Island was on forever. Mr. Ed was on forever. My Mother the Car wasn't. I think that didn't last like 10 seasons, but some of these had like 100 and over 100 episodes. I mean, think about the challenge that must be for a writer to do something like Gilligan's Island and have 100 of them. What is there? What can happen? How do you keep from just doing that? Well, you didn't keep from doing the same thing over and over. Actually, some of the episodes were pretty much just like all the other episodes. But that it's kind of an amazing thing. You just don't get that anymore. It's like something goes on for 15 episodes, and that's long, much less maybe 30 or 40. So that was a thing. All right, because that actually kind of worked out, the odds are quite high that I'll be able to assemble this. But first I need to attach those tanks to the inside of this panel. This is the one that opens up. And those are these little beasts here. And they go in a very specific order that is determined by the instruction manual. Get that. I don't know how I'm going to do this. Just they're really small and not. This one, okay, each of them, they have a bracket that I painted a darker color, and the tank is lighter. You have these little pins in the back that are theoretically should line up with the holes in the door. Yeah, this is why you test fit. So the top one goes in the hole. The bottom one is a little too big. Is it? And I can't see it in there. Okay, that's supposed to go in like that. Yeah, that one goes there on the top. And then this little bitty thing that used to, actually never did, have a pin in the back. It didn't come with it. Is supposed to go here in the middle somehow. Right, that's going to be a challenge. Yeah, that's supposed to go there. And then this one, again, the bracket on the bottom holding it up is supposed to go here. Yeah, and this pin up here is too big. Yes, I will get my needle file out and try to make it a little bit smaller. Stack stuff up there in a dangerous way, so you can see that. Maybe you can see here that this pin is bigger than that. All right, but the hole into which it attaches is not as big as this pin. I need to make it a little bit smaller. This is one of those, really, I need to deal with this kind of thing. And hopefully this will work. Now, if I were like making this model when I was younger, okay, I would have just put extra cement on there and dissolved the plastic and said, well, yeah, the plastic's dissolved, it'll fit. Just push it in through the mushiness. See it. this one had the same sort of issue on the bottom, but it seems to fit better. Okay. Guess I'm going to do this. I want to not get, even with this little pinpoint applicator, okay, I would get way too much cement in these holes. And as a result, it would dissolve the paint and make a mess. So what I'm hoping I can do here, get the piece of paper out. Is I'm going to put the cement on here and then use a toothpick to put teeny little bits of cement in the holes, and even a teenier little bit of cement on the very tips of these, and hope that I install it right side up. That's why the pins are different sizes, so it only goes in one way. Oh, okay. This is what I really need to do. Oh, this is, let me explain. No, I didn't make this, I didn't create this model. This is actually a pretty spectacular History Makers by, I think, Revell model that was produced by them. I'll just show you this. This is it. Okay. So yeah, Revell put this out in the 1990s, I think, showing the entire Apollo stack. I got this part done, the escape module done. Now I'm working on the service module. But this is really cool because it includes all the modules of the Apollo other than the rocket itself. And they all come apart so that once you launch this, you can take the escape module and say, oh, look, it's safely gone. And then this opens up and this opens up, and you can remove this, turn the command module around, dock it with the LEM, take the LEM back out, land the LEM on the moon, and that comes apart. But we do print things, and I'm going to digress and show it to you since you asked. You can see the 3D printers behind us. Those are PLA printers, and those are used to produce our dungeon tiles for our Dungeons and Dragons show. And these are some samples that I will show because they're really cool. So this stream actually started as a stream showing the painting, the hand painting of the dungeon tiles that we look in our D&D show. So these are printed on the PLA printer back there. And the PLA printer actually does a really good job because this is printed as a single unit. It does the floor and the wall as one single solid unit. So sometimes the wall and the floor are separate and then they need to be cemented together, but it's really hard to get them lined up. So these are done that way. These are rough stone. Okay, we have rough stone, cut stone, and my favorite, the wood. Again, and the printer does a great job of showing the different planking and the graining. And this stream started because we needed these tiles for the dungeons for a D&D show. And then they're painted here. So we prime them like this. These are base coated in gray, and then there's detail stones put on. And then this would be washed with a dark gray wash to make it look aged. This is base coated at a kind of a tannish brown, actually. But this color is brought out by a wash, a really beautiful wash. And then the stucco is painted. And they're done both inside and outside. So you can, in this case, walk through the door, which opens, ta-da, and go outside. But the best part about this is that under these panels are 4 ball magnets, 8 ball magnets, 2 in each corner. And so they stick to each other. And then you can take them apart in any orientation and rearrange your dungeon. So that's the coolest part about these tiles. And our dungeon master is the one who really worked hard at getting the design down and figuring out how to get the magnets in here so that, you know, they're like that. You know, and you can even attach them like this. So, yeah. And if you go on YouTube and catch the last 3 episodes of our D&D show, you will see a 3-story dungeon. It's a house, really. It's a building. It's a stronghold that uses the stone on the bottom and the wood on the top. And there's even, you know, if you look, there's this little scrolling thing underneath me that shows some of the smaller units of dungeons, like a necromancy lair and that kind of thing that we've designed and put together. But we also have a rosin printer, okay? And the rosin printer gives rise to, and I painted these on the show, like a little sprite. Okay, that comes out. And I really like this one, the kind of Quetzalcoatl. This one came out. The rosin printer did an okay job, but then feathers break off. You know, I've learned how to do repairs on these things. This one, the point of the arrow broke, and I had to create a new point with. I've gotten pretty good at fabricating sword blades and arrow points from toothpicks, but then when I have minifigs, I'll paint them on the show like this. So that's how I kind of get used to painting detailed things. Although it turns out that the detail on these minifigs, even one like this, that the detail on the minifigs, even like the gold nugget it's holding, is large detail in comparison to like the submariner parts of this model. Anyway, yeah, so we print minifigs on the rosin printer, and we do our dungeon tiles on the PLA printer. I liked this one because it was really easy to paint, little sheep. And so I've asked our DM to make a flock of sheep, and I will paint them, a big flock of black-faced sheep that we will probably encounter in one of our D&D campaigns. And who knows? Who knows if they will be friendly sheep or whether they might be evil sheep. Just can't be sure about that. But anyway, yeah, thanks for asking about how we print. You know, this model I'm working on is a purchased model. It's a vintage model from like the 90s. The submarine I built was a vintage model from the 60s. I actually built that when I was in grade school. Not the one here. One I did on the stream, I built, in the last year. But one of the original ones I actually did in the 1960s when it first came out. And that was, it went a lot faster then because I hardly painted anything at all. And I didn't do the dials on the control panels and stuff. But anyway, I keep promising that someday I will pull the submarine out, which is over there under some paper towels to keep it from being dusty, just to show people that if they didn't see the assembly process, again, that's on YouTube, you can look it up. If you didn't see the assembly process, you can, catch an episode or two. I'm going to put this little. Oh, I really need to do this in the box. Okay, let me explain. I drop things. And if I do this in the box and I drop it, it's likely to stay in the box, not fall on the floor, and roll under the workbench. And so not falling on the floor and rolling under the workbench is a very desirable thing. I have lost parts to minifigs that way. What can I do? I'm just squeezing a little bit of the cement out because even the needlepoint applicator is not fine enough to assure that the cement goes. And I don't know if this stuff is going to work or not. If not, I can use the contact cement. With this one, I may end up having to do that. I don't know. See if I can even get it in the spot. I'm putting this one on first because if the other tanks are in place, this isn't going to work. All I'm going to do is get cement in places where I don't want. Okay, I'm going to try something else with this one. I think I'm going to let that set for a bit. But I'm going to need to use the contact cement for this one because the pin on here is essentially not there. It's pretty much not in existence. And so there's no contact point where the cement touches anything. But this is contact cement that I have used with a fairly Oh yeah, let me show that to you. This is the entire stack. So this is the entire model. And let me show this, just so you know that some of it has actually been assembled. Here, okay, so you can see that. This is the escape module. You can recognize it. It goes at the very, very top. And I finished this a week or two ago. Okay. And the one I'm working on now is the service module that goes in the center. Put this away. I don't want to drop it and break it. The command module on this. And while I'm waiting for the cement I put on there to dry so that I can use something else, the way this works, this is the entire stack kind of in here, is you can reenact the Apollo mission. It's kind of cool. The way you reenact it is you say, oh, I'm launching, right? And then after you're safely out of the atmosphere, the launch escape system detaches from the command module, make that go away. And then you can open up the fairing that holds the lunar module, take the command module off the top of it, turn it around and dock it to the lunar module, right? Go to the moon, detach the lunar module, land it. The lunar module is really, I'm going to be building that, I think, after the fairing, before I do the command module. And then the ascent module actually detaches from the lunar module. And it goes back to the command module, you come back to Earth, you throw that away, and the command module comes back. So out of this entire thing, it really seems kind of wasteful. The only thing that returns is the command module. The service module is jettisoned. Half of the lunar module stays on the moon. Okay. That's why I bought this model. It's like, I really like the whole Apollo thing because I grew up with it. So I, experienced the entire Apollo Saturn V creation, the development of it and the testing. But I wanted, you can get like a lunar module, you can get a command module, but I liked this model because it has all of them, and they sort of fit together. The fit and finish of the injection molding leaves something to be desired. But I bought this because it has all the parts, and in some ways it shows the detail as well, which is neat. So this is the part that was a major oops on Wednesday. You can see that there's these components on the inside of this panel, and I thought, well, instead of just having it all painted gold, why don't I try to put some color on these, like black maybe or red? And I tried, and I had some success, but then there was a little spot of black paint or ink that got away right on the bottom of this thing here. And then I tried to fix it, and it spread around, and I gave up. And I really should go back with a felt tip pen and try to detail those, but it really was very frustrating. I'll just say that. It's where I would have been justified in using naughty words. I can't believe I said that, use naughty words. Yeah, I'm trying to keep this like G rated, whatever it is, not even PG. Not even doing the P in the PG. Okay, I'm trying to get enough of this on here to get some sort of surface that would actually make contact. I'm using contact cement, right? But it doesn't work unless the two contact parts actually make contact, and that this little thing is a helium tank, I guess, is what they call it. Yeah, doesn't really have any point of contact. This contact cement has a couple of real advantages. One is that it just grabs immediately to itself. So if this does in fact make contact with the contact cement down here, it'll just grab. The other thing, though, is that it stays, well, among the many advantages, is that it stays flexible, so that if something isn't quite lined up, or if it droops a little bit, it's possible to hold it and align it. And it sets up pretty quickly, much more quickly than the model cement. A third advantage is that it doesn't dissolve the paint or the plastic, especially the paint, because the model cement does dissolve the paint, and if it touches a painted surface, it just makes a mess of it. So, the disadvantage is that it's very thick. It's jelly-like, and so it's hard to apply. Okay, so this is sticking, but because it's not setting, I can rotate this a little bit of a lot. Okay, well that tank is applied to the spot where I want it. I might just go ahead and use this if I can on the rest of them as well. See if I can get it to adhere to. I think that it gets so set up so quickly that it's hard to get it to adhere to the surface. It adheres to itself real well, but doesn't always adhere to the surface. Okay, I got it in there. Trying to get it into the opening. The fourth advantage, again, among the advantages, right, is that it's kind of like rubber cement in that if it like oozes out or something, it's possible to clean it off. Okay, I think the small one goes on the top. I better check again. Yeah, the small one goes on top. This one goes there. Because it's so gelatinous, it sometimes there's more of it on the surface than I would want. I'm going to I looked around to see if there's some more liquid form of this contact cement, and there is, but it got mediocre reviews. Like it didn't hold. At some point, I might invest. You see, it comes out of the tube pretty liquid, but then it sets up and gets jelly-like really quickly. This looks okay. Rotate it a little bit. There's a flaw in the tank, just in the plastic that looks better. Okay, let me see if I can get this to go. It's to go here. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And I've got one more to put on, and then I'm going to let this set. I think what I've got here is like a little sample tube that came with something else. And what I will do, since I've now been using it quite a lot, is I'll probably invest, the $5 or $8 or whatever it costs, I don't know, to get a real tube of it. I wanted to talk more about 50s and 60s television today, and not about Gilligan's Island. And I don't care who's more powerful, Samantha or Jeannie. Somewhere else to get that controversy, the dialogue about that controversy or conversation about it. But I wanted, and I talked about different genres, how everything was a Western. And then after the James Bond movies came out, everything was a spy show. And then there was a whole series of detective shows, and that genre had gone on for a long time. Some of it even was an early one. Was it the FBI? I forget which one it was. Its theme song was a hammer pounding on an anvil. That was an old radio show. In fact, a lot of the early TV in the 1950s were radio shows. I mean, that's what they were. And they had the same actors and things for the most part. There are lots of spy shows. There are a couple of doctor shows. There were some space shows. You know, after Star Trek came out, you had Battlestar Galactica, Lost in Space. Not too many of them, but a few. You had the Jetsons. But there were also these like one-offs of just oddities. And that's what I wanted to talk about today with these one-offs, because some of them were pretty interesting. There was really, some of them we just really liked. Like there was Sea Hunt. Not Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea with the submarine. It wasn't that. It was Sea Hunt, and what Sea Hunt was Lloyd Bridges, a scuba diver. And the entire show, you know, there was always something that required someone to go scuba diving. It's just a flaw in the tank in the bracket. It's just going to have to be there. I don't think I can fix that. I'm going to look at this. I know it's too small to really see, but I can see it in the light, and it looks like just a painting issue. And I think there's a little spot that if I touch it up with paint, it'll go away. I'm not really sure. So I'm going to do that. I use dark aluminum. Here, there's this infinitesimal little dot, teeniest little dot. It looks like maybe the paint just came off. So Sea Hunt was one, and it was one of those specialty shows because it was all built around scuba diving. And for some reason, there was somebody lost in a cave, or they needed to fix an undersea cable, or who knows what. There was always a reason why Lloyd Bridges needed to put the scuba suit on and go scuba diving. We learned about different, some of the techniques of scuba diving as well. It was kind of interesting that way. And we learned about this thing called a rebreather. A rebreather was cool. It didn't carry air. What it was it scrubbed the carbon dioxide out of your exhalation. I don't know what that was, but this seems to have fixed it. And they used that a couple of times. Anyway, that was one of the specialty shows. We always caught Sea Hunt because something was going on underwater. Yeah, and Lloyd Bridges was an actor, but I'm not sure everybody remembers that he was an expert diver as well. And this was a time when scuba gear was actually a fairly new thing. This was a 1950s television show. So staying with sort of the saltwater theme, there was, of course, Flipper. And the gimmick in that was the dolphin. right? That so the show always something had to involve the dolphin. So that was the thing about these I'll call them gimmick shows. They really weren't, but thematic shows, maybe that is that. I know. I really wish I could do like some metallic color on there. Just like a dark, like this dark gray on these things. But I just don't want to mess it up. And even though I had some real success on the very, very tiny conduits on the top of the service module, having failed once, I just don't want to take a chance again. So unfortunately, this detail here is just going to stay gold painted. That's just the way it will be. I'm not going to take a chance again. So these pieces here, I'm going to let that set. I'm going to work on those after break. Okay. I need to set these aside. Oh, well, this little container is now empty. I can put that in the aside. That anymore. I don't need this anymore. I don't need this anymore. I don't need that anymore. Trying to clean up a little bit. I know that's kind of odd, isn't it? Those of you who are more familiar with this stream know that cleaning up is not something that happens very often. All right. So the plan for today, well, let me just keep showing this, so there's something on screen, right? These here. Conduits on the top. I was able to paint these tiny little things, or like conduits or wires or something. I was able to do that, but I've just chickened out. I just chickened out and said I should probably be able to do the same thing here without that much problem, because these are actually bigger than some of those, but I don't want to mess it up again. Not when it's so close to being finished. So here are pieces that are completed. This is the interior of this and this door. These hinges here go here, and it opens up that way to expose that. And then these two pieces cover the rest of this around the back. I can show you this one, for example, goes this one goes on like this. Okay. And then the hinges are held in place there. And then this little one goes here. In after break, because this has actually come together fairly well, I am going to assemble this. And then, except for the attitude control rockets, which attach to the outside of this, the service module will be complete. I'm going to do that after break because I want the contact cement on here to finish hardening. And then the way I'm going to attach this, I'm not really sure how I'm going to attach this. I probably could use contact cement again. What I want is for this sort of slides in, and it's in contact on the top and the bottom. You can just see how those ridges go on the top and the bottom of the bulkheads, the top and bottom bulkhead. There's a nice alignment pin on this one, which is good, okay, because it needs to be aligned. The door goes there, and then this one just goes in between them. This one goes in as close to this as possible. So the contact point for the cement would be, actually I could use brush. I want it to be applied along the edge here, so that when this slides onto it, it pushes it away from the surface that might be seen. But it would only go on one side. I think the problem with the contact cement is that it would ooze too much. That if I put it on both surfaces, like this surface and the bottom surface, when I push them together, when they got pushed together, it would push the contact cement out, so it would show. So I'm going to use the liquid cement and use it very sparingly, just like in the back here where it's not going to show at all. Hopefully get this part to go on there and be lined up in such a way that there'll be very little chance of the cement marring the exterior surface. If I can get this one on, then the door will actually be held in place already, and then it'll just be getting the little one on after that. So that's going to happen after break. I am actually going to do my best to finish the assembly here. And then this part is just held on by friction on the very bottom. It goes on the bottom of this. It just goes on like that, and it's held on by this part of the nozzle, this bottom part of the nozzle fitting in here. And I know that it will go there because that's where it goes. And so I do not need to attach it, and I'm not going to because, well, the reason I'm not going to attach it is because then I don't have a way to store it. This way I can keep it in this box and keep it from getting all dusty. So that part's done. And then once this is all put together, then I'll put this back in the box, okay, and store it. And then I need to start assembling these. That's going to be the last bit. Yeah, I ended up painting it the pearlescent white, and I think I like the way it shines. I tested just plain white, pure white that it's called, and it's kind of dull, but this looks pretty good. It looks sort of metallic. It's nice. So these parts, yeah, let's cover them up. So the reason I was a little hesitant to move forward with the next bit, which is attaching those to this, is that I need to work inside the box. Need to work inside this box because if I drop one, it will be a problem. So let me look. I think I've got another box. I'm going to put these parts in here. I just do that, right? There. Then I can close this up put it aside in a place where it is unlikely to fall and be a disaster. So I'll just set it up there out of the way. Okay. There, that opened up a place for me to work on these little bits. I think I might just leave, I'm just going to leave it on there for the time being. It's just some two-sided tape that's holding that on. I'm going to get one out. These were kind of fun to paint. Again, I probably did detail on here that was unnecessary, but the exterior is painted that steel color, the metallic color, and then I did paint the inside of the nozzle black so that there's a contrast between the two. So one of these gets attached like that, and it's supposed to stay there. And the contact cement actually would work really well on that and hold it pretty well. But again, I'm going to try it. It's because it's so jelly-like. It's hard to not have it ooze around. The alternative is to use the liquid model cement. See that in these, there's a gap too. The liquid model cement doesn't fill the gap. I mean, it's not a real tight fit. I'm going to just try one before break and see what happens. I'm going to see if I can do it. This might just end up taking forever. Because of the way this stuff works. Second. I'm trying to do the same thing I did with those little tanks that went in the golden painted door. Trying to get a little bit of this cement in that hole. There is a tiny little opening there, and then another tiny little bit of contact cement at this point. Heat it or not, I'll let it set for a minute or two. Contact cement likes to set for a bit before it's attached. But if I can get one of these done and it works, then it'll take a long time to get all 16 of them on. I mean, that's obvious, right? That it will take a long time to do that. But it's one of those things that it'll take a long time, but eventually it'll get done. Yeah, it held. So the nice thing is, as I said, it grabs quickly, but it stays malleable so that I can make sure that this is oriented horizontally and vertically. Well, that worked okay, and it didn't ooze out too much. I mean, it oozed out a little bit, but not enough to mess with. What I need is, oh man, what I need is for it to not skip around like that. get it lined up. Okay, so you can see sort of how that's supposed to look. One goes here, and then there's one on either side. So you can also begin to see that there's no place to hold this. So I think this is what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to put the 8 of them that go this way in line with the bracket. I'm going to put 8 of those on so that when it comes time to put these on, I guess I'll just have to hold it like this. Yeah, there. See, there's this little bit on the bottom, but there's no way to grab this. I could grab an alligator clip here like that, but it would very likely scratch the surface. Wonder if this would work. Some sticky tack. Yeah, that's not bad. That'll hold it. Okay, well, there. The sticky tack is really a mess because it's been holding lots of things that get painted. But it's holding that at least well enough so that I can rotate it and align the nozzles. But the contact cement held it. It's holding it, and it's not sagging. Okay. Well, this tells me that this is a possibility. Then I can actually get this done sometime in my lifetime, and that when they are done, be able to attach them to the service module exterior, and then that will be done. And it's so hard to tell if they're lined up, But I'll just do my best to get them in alignment. I guess that'll do. Okay, well, there. I have the tools I need. I'm going to put these guys back in here. And I'm going to continue doing the work in this box. And I need to squeeze out a new supply, a new drop of contact cement. A little blob of contact cement for each one of these because it sets up so quickly that it can't be used. I'll end up using most of this tube, I think, just getting these done. But I know what it is, so I can get more. Yeah. The super glue works really well for these kind of things too. It grabs right away, but it doesn't give much time, maybe sometimes no time, to play around with things like the alignment. In this case, that's an important thing. Okay, I'm going to take a break a little bit early, but this is a good time to do that now that I have that done and those things are setting up. And after break, I'll come back and probably just keep sticking nozzles on these brackets because it has to get done. There isn't any way around it. Okay. I'm just saying, okay, this is holding on really well. But then I need to move it way to the edge. So why am I moving it way to the edge? I'm moving it way to the edge because I've got 4 of these. And once these are attached, they're still going to be a little floppy. I won't be able to pick them up. So I need to be able to put another one way over on this edge, okay, so that I can put 2 on each of these. I've got 2 holders like this. Yeah, I'm glad I thought of that before I got too far along. Okay, break time. Need to take a break. I will be back in roughly, give or take, 30 minutes. I mean, not give or take 30 minutes. 30 minutes, give or take a little bit. And we'll continue to stick attitude-controlled jet nozzles on these little brackets. And then, depending on how things are going, well, this just needs to be done in order for final assembly. So I'll be working on these, and I might finish this today, maybe not. If not, it looks like all the parts are ready to go. If final assembly doesn't happen today, and it probably won't, it will be on Monday. And so on Monday, oh no, Monday's a holiday. People aren't going to be watching. At least here in the States. A lot of people are not in the States. And they might be on Monday, but I don't know. I'll confer with other members of Dyson Dungeons to decide whether I'm going to stream on Monday or not, and then I'll let everybody know. But I've got like one more stream after this to finish the service module. Okay? Like I said, I'm not going to be able to, I don't think I'll be moving along fast enough because I just don't move that fast to finish these, all 16 of these nozzles yet today. But there isn't too much left. So the next stream, which will either be Monday or Wednesday, I'll let you know after break. The next stream will be the completion of the service module and then moving on to other components of the Apollo module. Probably the container, the base of the model. Let me show it to you as I narrate. Probably this base, not the thing inside, that's the lunar module, but the base that holds the lunar module and on the top of which sits the service module. Okay, so I'll probably work on this bit next. And then after that is done, then I will work on the lunar module. And after that is done, I'll work on the command module. And when that is done, then it's done, and I'll move on to something else. I'm not sure what it'll be. I think maybe the Savoia. I think maybe Porco Rosso's plane will be next. I have like 3 dozen other models sitting up here. I've got a gigantic V2. I don't know why I bought that. It stands like 2.5 feet tall. That's another one of those where it's got a clear side and you can see the interior detail. So that's a pretty cool model. It is really big. And that would, the submarine was bad enough trying to keep it on this work surface. That might be too big. I've got an SR-71. I've got some Star Trek things. I've got a Deep Space Nine. And what else do I have? Just talking out loud here. I've got a couple of the Enterprises. I've got X-15, that's a cool model. I've got a model of the Lotus Ford that was the first rear engine car to win the Indianapolis 500. I've got an amazing 1957 fuel-injected Corvette, large scale, that comes with working headlights and a carpeted interior. And I've got a plank-built America, the Yacht America, one of the first models I bought that I never got around to building. and it's just gorgeous. I mean, if it came out like it looks on the box, it would really be amazing. A Catalina. I've got a B-29 that is like also the submarine, where it's a cutaway, so you can see the interior of the B-29. That would be a fun one. Anyway, I've got like 8 years of models to build, maybe longer at the rate that I'm building it. Look at. Yeah. Anyway, this one's coming along, I guess, pretty well. And I'll be back from break and attaching rocket nozzles to little brackets. And if not finishing today, sometime next week, the service module will be done, and we're moving on to another part of the model. So thanks for watching so far. Thank you for the new follows. Please come back in about a half an hour and watch me tediously put together these little bits of model pieces. Yeah, it came back. I will never stop being surprised when things work. Okay. What I will be doing now for the rest of the stream is getting as many of these tiny little attitude control rocket nozzles onto the almost as tiny but slightly larger brackets that fit onto the outside of the service module. So if you were to look at the picture, what I'm working on are these little bits here. And there's 4 on each bracket, and then they go attached to the outside. So far, things have gone pretty much okay. The spray painting on the outside panels of the service module worked. I had to do a little bit of touch-up. I did some touching up on the rocket nozzle, and I installed the little these tanks to the inside of the door, the panel that opens, that hinges open to show the interior of the service module. So the things that need to be done yet is this here, which shouldn't take too long, assuming I don't mess it up, which is the installation of these adhesion, cementing or gluing on these 2 panels to the service module interior. This one holds the hinges in, so this isn't cemented. I've got to finish these bits, which is what's down here. So once this is put on and those are done, then those are attached to the outside. This bit is finished as well. Unfortunately for the viewers, this is real tedious getting these on one at a time. And so it's going to take a while. It's kind of boring, I guess, but it has to get done. I'm working on it inside this little box so that if I drop a piece, hopefully it will land in the box on the paper towel, not bounce off and fall somewhere where I can't retrieve it. I'll take these off because otherwise I can't see. Close up. Trifocals have this tiny little spot down at the bottom here of the lens that's designed for focusing up close. It doesn't really work, especially when doing something like this, where you'd have to hold your head up in order to see through the bottom of the glasses, in which case I'm looking up instead of at the piece. That's the explanation for that. I'm using contact cement on this because I tried the other cement and it doesn't, I just can't get it to work, but this does. But it comes out very jelly-like and gets almost unusable really fast. Really, really fast. And so I can usually get like 1 of these on, maybe 2, with each application of this. I'm actually going to try, since this sets for a bit, I mean, the way this works is that you put it on, you try to anyway, get it put on, and then it just sets there. and dries. Doesn't really dry, but then it sticks to itself. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to try to get it on 3 of these. Why not? You know, it doesn't hurt if it sits for a while. It doesn't hurt it at all. It works just as well. But it's kind of like really, like if you've ever worked with epoxy and it's really fast setting, and if you don't get it on to where you want it right away, then it's worthless. It's just goo. This is kind of the same way. It needs to get on, pretty quickly. They got it in the little things there. Now I need to get little bits of it on each of these little points. Just a little bit on each one. If this works, it will move along more quickly than if it doesn't. Probably do these as I'm doing this. I'm learning, and what I'm learning is that I should get it onto these points first while it's, because I can push it down into the little holes in the bottom of the rocket nozzles, but these points, way too much on this one. It needs to be more liquid to get it on these little pins. So if I do this on another one, I will on another one because I have 4 of these things that need to be done. I'm going to put it on the points first before it gets too gelatinous. It is no longer adhering. I don't know if that's going to work or not. Find out. Let me take another one of these and I'm going to stick it on this side. Put these on. See, it grabs nicely at least. And if they stick on, then I can align them. Yeah. They're sticking on, but they're definitely not aligned. Down. Yeah, it's hard to tell when this thing isn't straight on here anyway. Well, they're sticking, adhering to where they should be adhered. I'm suffering from the fire alarm fiasco last night. We had a fire alarm go off. Our smoke alarm in the house went off at like 3 a.m. It was a false alarm. That was good. Don't know why there was a false alarm, but it was, and it woke us up. And it's hard to recover from that sort of thing. Household is I can't say a bit. That would be a silly understatement. The household is very sleep deprived today, including me. Okay, well, this isn't bad. It's hard to tell. I'm just eyeballing it here. It would be really what I should have. What I should have is like a piece of graph paper. But then I would need to take it off of here, and I can't take it off of here. I mean, there's no way to lift it off at this point without breaking these off. So I just need to do my best to make sure that these are orthogonal. They are right at, in the same plane, lined up with each other. I guess it's most important from the top here, how it looks from the top. The angle from which it will be seen. Most people aren't going to be looking at it from the side, but definitely be looking at it from the top. So I'm just going to keep playing with these a little bit to make sure that they're at right angles to each other. And then look at it from the side, given that this thing is tilted on there. Okay, that's not bad. So this one will go here. And I will do the same thing, and hopefully it'll be even better. Okay, let's see. I think I did 3 of them at once. The better part of Valor is to do, I think, 2. Because the cement, it just got too useless. Well, no. I am going to try to do all of them. So what I'll do, since, like I said, this stuff can set, it can just sit there for a good long time. As long as it doesn't touch itself. Just little bits on each of these pins. And it doesn't take very much, I found. I mean, this stuff grabs itself really well. And so a tiny little spot, a tiny little dot of this on the ends of the these useless pins. They're just useless as a holder. They're just kind of location markers, to be honest. It's pretty much what they are. But as I said, the nice thing about this is that it doesn't mar the paint. And so if it gets on, a spot where I don't want it, I can just, knock it over, knock it off like that so that it's screwed up. And I can just push it out of the way so it doesn't show. And the seam shows on this one a little bit. I did my best. These came in 2 parts and they came together. And I did my best to fill in and sand off the seams so that they didn't show. And that one was, it's okay, I guess. So I think there's some on each one of these. Find out if it sticks, then there is. If it doesn't, then there isn't. There's a tiny little indentation at the end of each one of these that is hopefully getting some of this into it and not oozing off the edges too much. So this is kind of hard to work with, but way safer in terms of preventing disaster than the cement that dissolves the paint in the plastic. Before break, I said what I started talking about kind of the TV in the 50s and 60s it was faddish, right? So there was the Western fad and the 007 spy show fad and the cop show fad and Beverly Hillbillies kind of comedy fad, that gave us things like Green Acres and Petticoat Junction and stuff like that. Then there were also like these one-offs, these unusual shows like Sea Hunt I was talking about, where Lloyd Bridges went scuba diving on every episode. There was always some reason in the show. There was some reason why somebody had to go scuba diving, and then there was Flipper, and there was some reason why we needed a dolphin to do something. But one of my favorites of that kind of, there's a weird thing that we need to have in order to, solve the mystery or fix the problem or save somebody or whatever, were the whirlybirds. You might say, what is a whirlybird? And you'd be right in asking, what is a whirlybird? That's a weird thing to call something. Well, a whirlybird, the Whirlybirds was a 1950s show, and it featured a helicopter. That's what a whirlybird was, a helicopter. This is not working. It's not holding. Okay. And the whirlybirds, just like, you always had to go scuba diving on Sea Hunt, and you always needed a dolphin in Flipper, is there was always something that required a helicopter in the Whirlybirds. Because that was kind of like the guest star thing, just like the scuba tanks was the guest star in Sea Hunt. Or Flipper was the star in Flipper. The helicopter, the Whirlybird, the star of that show. I remember that show distinctly because it came on fairly late. I mean, this was in the 50s, and like 7, 9 years old, I don't know, something like that. Younger than 10, but the thing came on at like 9 o'clock at night, and it was past our bedtime. And it was really, really an amazing thing when we were allowed to stay up. We had to go to bed right after, right? Right after the show, you couldn't. You had to promise you would go right to bed right after the show, but if you promised that, you could stay up and watch the Whirlybirds. And that was worth it. It was worth, being tired in the morning. Who cared, right? You're just going to school anyway. But it was worth it was worth it because the show always had this helicopter in it, and the whirlybird had to do something. I remember one particular, for some reason, I remember this one. It was, I think it was something they used more than once because it was like, oh yeah, this is how you do that, you know, like some of these tropes in some of these shows. It's like telling Super Chicken it's time to use your secret sauce. Super sauce, yeah, secret sauce, because or Super Chicken would always, his companion would say, Super Chicken, why don't you use your supervision? To which Super Chicken always replied, if I had any supervision, we wouldn't be in this mess. Anyway, yeah, so the whirlybird always required the use of a helicopter to do something. But one of the tropes, one of the things they used more than once was they needed to follow somebody. Well, that one fell off. Good. I'm trying to, there's excess here that needs to come off. I'm trying to pull it off. And in the process, I knocked that one off on the other side. Anyway, I need tweezers. Again, it's something you can't really see, but I know it's there, so it's bothering me. Anyway, the whirlybirds were hired to track a vehicle. I think for the police, right? It should have been for the police, some sort of law enforcement thing. Well, this is just going poorly here. So they did a little bit of vandalism, basically, is they would use a special paint. This is a special paint that glowed in, I think, either infrared or ultraviolet light, right? So they would paint like a big X on the top of a car. This is the thing they were supposed to follow. So how can you do that at night? You paint a big X on the roof using this special paint, and then you shone an ultraviolet light on it. Yeah, I have to re-cement that one. I'm just trying to get it lined up. It's just as easy to do. Mainly because it's not sitting on here straight and because I can't get my fingers in the right place. Again, I remind myself that most of the time people are going to be looking at this from the top. Like this one is pretty, it's not bad. This one's a little bit off of orthogonal, but there's that. I need to redo this one. So I think they did that several times during the show. I remember seeing it. It's like, oh, why don't they do the ultraviolet light paint thing on the roof of the car like they did before? And then they do, and we all go, yeah, I knew that was going to happen. And we all felt like we were really smart or something, that we knew what kind of thing the whirlybird was going to do. And then they'd follow the car when no one else could because, they were in a helicopter shining down on it. What we didn't ask ourselves was, if you've ever heard a helicopter, okay, flying, it's not silent. Okay, it's in fact very loud, and wouldn't the people in this vehicle get a little bit suspicious, maybe the tiniest little bit suspicious, that this really loud roaring sound, I'm trying to hold the top of that, And maybe what I'll use, I'm trying to hold the top of this steady so that it doesn't flop around when I stick that on like that. It's holding this time. Okay. But no, we were just so impressed that that they were using this X painted on the top of a vehicle with special paint that glowed when you shone either infrared or ultraviolet. I don't remember if they told us which one it was. Light on it. We were just so amazed at that because that was such a cool thing to do that we didn't wonder out loud about wouldn't the hideous noise of the helicopter hovering over them kind of, make them suspicious that they were being watched, maybe, especially since it hovered over them. Like it didn't just pass over; it stayed there. This one, for some reason, is sagging down. Again, it's a little bit hard to align these because it's not sitting flat. And it's not sitting flat because there's no way I can get this to sit flat. As long as they are orthogonal, the horizontal, that direction is much more important than this direction, although it would be nice if it didn't. Geez, it'd be nice if it laid flat. It's not. It isn't, and it just won't stay put. Unhappy with how this one is going. Anyway, yeah, I thought, it'd be interesting to talk about how there were these shows that were just built around a thing or an animal like Flipper or Sea Hunt or the Whirlybirds. I don't know why it was plural. I think there was only one helicopter. Kind of remembering that at that time, it's hard to imagine this, but at that time, helicopters were actually kind of a novel thing. They weren't just the everybody has one kind of thing it is now. So having a helicopter was a big deal. I'm not sure what is going on with this. And it would be a lot easier if every time I pushed on it, it didn't knock everything else over. Well, okay. I'm trying to get them lined up, but they're not in line anyway. This one's higher than that one. They're not even across. These are even across, but this one is higher than the other in terms of where it attaches. You can see that where it attaches to the bracket. I suppose that makes a difference that I should pay attention to when I attach these to the service module. That is to say, does the one that's higher, like that is higher than this on the bracket, are they supposed to be aligned in some way? You can see they're not lined up with each other this way either. So I need to make sure that they are all put on the same way. I'll have to look at the box top where the detail is a little stronger to make sure that, for example, does this one that's higher and forward always go like on the right side or the left side? It'll be important to know that. Okay, I'm going to let this set for a bit. Make sure they're lined up this way at least. It's not bad. And magnets on the base. Pull out another one here. See how I can do in terms of doing this one. But at least, I mean, you can, let me just put this on camera sort of, so you can see that they're attached. That's the important thing. And they are pretty much at right angles to each other. So they are mostly aligned, and it looks okay. Okay. Do this again. Starting with the little pins. Trying to get a little dot of this on each pin. Too much on it, because then it'll goo itself all over. One could also add Lassie, to that group of kinds of things. The show about the Lassie show wouldn't be Lassie unless the collie had to do something, track somebody. Usually it had to do with finding somebody. I think that was the thing that Lassie did most often. Taking rescuing. There was a lot of rescuing going on Lassie, as I recall. And I guess it was sort of the appeal in television back then was, knowing what was going to happen. The predictability of it, the repetitiveness of it, I don't recall being a real problem. I think in fact it was, kind of, it made the audience, members of the audience, feel like they knew something. It's like, it's time for Lassie to go save somebody. The old Lassie, is Timmy in the well again kind of thing. But, when these shows went on for over 100 episodes, just things had to be repetitive. And that I don't recall that was a problem. I think that was a good thing then. It seemed to be, I can't tell if there's something on here or not. It seems to be gelling up on me. Well, if not, then it won't stick, just like the other one fell off once before. Easier to get them in, to push a little bit into the depression on the bottoms of these rocket nozzles. Remove the excess. Yeah, I thought there'd be more to talk about with those. You know, I guess if if you wanted to kind of push it, Mr. Ed was kind of like that. Mr. Ed was kind of like one of those where something had to happen. The ones that were best, though, were the ones with things, like the whirlybirds. That was a good one. Where the helicopter was essential for a reason. For some reason, the helicopter was essential. It had to do something. Otherwise, it wouldn't be whirlybirds, would it? It would just be like a cop show. This works better when it sticks to the sticky tack. But this isn't sticking to the sticky tack at all. And as a result, is a problem. Sticking to the sticky tack at a very useless angle. Or just not at all. So my brilliant plan of holding this on the sticky tack has turned out to be kind of like a failure. Here's the problem. Stick. I think they're supposed to stick to the sticky. Brilliant solution is just turning out to be less and less solution by the moment. Anyway, yeah, I thought I would talk about some of the more obscure. I don't know why it's obscure. I mean, they were widely popular at the time. Whirlybirds and Sea Hunt and 50s television that involved, doing the same thing or using the same equipment in each episode. They're always, you'd watch an episode of Sea Hunt and it would just go on and on. And you'd say, when is he going to get in the water? When is he going to swim underwater? And there are lots of underwater, shots. I guess, I don't know if that was a very expensive production or not. It might have been. I mean, it might have been pretty expensive to produce, not because there was, a lot of expensive actors or anything like now, but because they had to do a lot of underwater motion photography. Underwater filming, and it was film. So those cameras had to be something really special. It's kind of interesting to think about that. I'm sure that there's you can read this entire articles about, what was then probably state of the art. I mean, it's stuff they might have been just created even just for the show in order to get all the underwater scenes done. Didn't think of it at the time. We were just watching this show and people went in the water because you always had to have something with the scuba. To be something with the scuba, otherwise it wouldn't be an episode of Sea Hunt. The other thing, the thing I remembered about the Whirlybirds was, painting the ultraviolet light up thing on the top of a car in order to follow it with your very much not silent whirlybird at night. But a Sea Hunt was when you entered the water off the side of a boat, they always went in backwards. They did this back flop and landed on their backs because that way they didn't rip their mask off, their diving mask. That was an important lesson to learn. I don't know why. I mean, it's not like I ever was going to go scuba diving or anything, but I knew that if I ever was going to go scuba diving, that it would be best to go in backward, to flop in backward, because that way your mask wouldn't come. You learn these things when you're a kid watching television in the 50s. Wouldn't have known that anyway. Wouldn't have known that at all if it weren't for Sea Hunt. I hope I have the name of the show right. It would be awful if I spent this entire time talking about a TV show and I was calling it the wrong name the whole time. I should have looked it up, to be sure. But I didn't. So if I embarrassed myself by talking about something and giving it the wrong title, well, that is something that can happen. All right. I am down to the last 4. Pressing my luck here and try to get the cement on for all 4 at the same time. Well, not at the same time, but with the same batch of contact cement. The alignment on these things might not be perfect, but as is frequently the way with this stream is that it's as good as I can get it, and with the right skills and the right tools, there probably was just another way of holding these pieces together and aligning them, and maybe even building some jigs. If someone was getting paid hundreds and hundreds of dollars to do a professional display model of this, they'd probably take the time to build a jig so that these things are all lined up the right way. At least I noted that because these things are asymmetric, that their orientation on the model, once they're attached to the service module itself, that the orientation is going to be an important thing and needs to be consistent from one to the other. Otherwise, that would be very noticeable. So I hope I remember that next week when I do the final assembly. So speaking of next week, which I just started doing, here in the U.S., Monday is one of the major holidays, Memorial Day, and that's a day when everybody is driving back basically from the stuff they had done over the long weekend. This is one of those traditional holidays in the U.S. when everybody travels somewhere. People who have, an up north cottage, a lot of folks in the Midwest have a place where they visit. They might own it, or they might rent one, or they might go camping. A lot of people go camping. This is the weekend when all of that really gets going. So probably most people who are doing that are already going to or at the place where they're going for the weekend. People will take Friday off. But anyway, what I was planning to say and then didn't, because that's how this goes. Start talking about something and then just keep getting distracted. The reality is that on Monday, there's, in the States at least, nobody's going to be paying attention to anything other than the traffic and complaining about how the weather was awful and ruined their long weekend, and it's the only long weekend they have until Labor Day or the 4th of July or something, and they spent all this money renting a recreational vehicle and camping, and it rained on them. And anyway, other than doing that, which people will be doing, they won't be watching something like this. And so I am going to, jeez. Did I knock things out of alignment? I think not really. It still looks okay. Pretty much okay. So yeah, I'm not going to stream on Monday. That's what I was going to say. I started out attempting to tell you that I'm not going to stream on Monday because it's a significant holiday here in the States, and it's not a time when anybody's going to be watching this sort of thing. And for all I know, the family might have plans, because it's a significant holiday, to do something, and streaming for 4 hours or so would maybe get in the way of that. So I'm taking Monday off, but I will be back on Wednesday. And on Wednesday of next week, I will be finishing the assembly of the service module. I'm not going to finish it today because finishing it involves attaching these, and I want the cement to set up. As you can see, the parts, they bounce around yet. Okay. The stuff is still like rubber cement. So I want them to solidify so that I don't knock them off, mess them up any more than I'm doing now when I attach them to the service module. Cotton. The cotton doesn't mar the surface, but it also is slippery. Okay, well, let me see what I can do about aligning these. They are, from this angle, fairly well aligned. This one is sagging pretty badly. It's also sagging really badly. And then that one wasn't sagging, and I pushed on it. It's like each one got progressively more difficult. I don't know why that was, but the way it turned out is that each one just became more and more challenging than the last one. So that, like, yeah, just dropping stuff. Don't worry about it. That happens. I drop stuff. And then after the stream, I find it and pick it up. But once again, the important part is looking at it from the top to make sure that they are orthogonal, that they're at right angles to each other. If these are lined up with the central axis like that, okay, they're lined up like that, then I just need to make sure that these are at right angles, and then it's okay. And if they're like up and down a little bit, then that's not so much of a problem. It's kind of hard to tell given how the sticky tack doesn't hold them flat. But it is about the only way I can hold this and still. See how these are doing. These aren't going to move very much anymore. No, I shouldn't say that. They did. This is not this particular jet is not aligned. At some point, the thing that is just imperceptible. You know, they will just be as they are. At least they're holding. You know, they're not falling off. That's a good thing. Not falling off is good. Doesn't look straight, but it's. Anyway, yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to get these things lined up to look okay when they're installed. And this particular one is just off center. I mean, not off center, but off kilter. It's off kilter. That's a good word. Wonder what a kilter is. I should look that up. I'm sure there's some sort of, maybe it's lying, maybe it's not, something about the origin of the word off kilter. There's all sorts of sayings, just these little sayings of things that just come up over the years. And some of them are very old, and we still keep saying them, even though we have no idea, the original reference. Number one from my grandmother. Leaves the door open, especially an outside door. She'd yell out, "Hey, were you born in a barn?" I mean, what the heck? Why didn't she just say, "Hey"? You should take off that Friday. And the 4th of July, everybody's going to turn that into like an entire week off. They probably will take, Wednesday, the day before the 4th, so that they can get ready for the 4th. And then who's going to work on a Friday? If you've got a Saturday, Sunday weekend, and not everybody does, but if you are one of the people who do, I'm guessing that Friday will be taken off. In fact, here in the States, Thanksgiving Day is always on a Thursday. And it just became so common to turn it into a 4-day weekend with people taking the Friday off that some places just gave up and said, we're just closed Thursday and Friday. It's just the way it is. Okay, well, that's going to be what it is. Let's see how these guys are doing. Too bad. This one just isn't wanting to stay straight there. Yeah. That didn't work, did it? No. That was an absolutely perfect example of definitely not working. There was some excess cement showing. And I tried to pull it off, and it pulled it off the sticky tack, and in fact, it pulled the whole thing off. And now the whole thing this is another one of those, why didn't I just leave it alone? Seriously, it was okay. No one would have noticed. Just leave it alone. But no, I didn't. Fortunately, in this particular case, having a little bit of excess cement here, okay, is not the same as having discolored paint all over the inside of your gold painted door on the service module, which is what I did on Wednesday. Okay. So this was not the same level of oops. This was as oopses go, this was a minor oops. But still, it was annoying because it's, it was near the just about done for the day, just about finished with this task. It was just one of those, really, can't we just finish this and not have a problem? The answer is no. You can't just finish this and not have a problem. Nope, nope, nope. Can't happen. Put this one back on. How to finish the last 15 minutes or so of this? Well, now I know. So this is, the orientation of all of these is not perfect. I don't think it's going to be extremely noticeable. This one just needs, I hate to do this, I really do, but this one has a flaw right on the top in the paint. It's ugly, and it needs to rotate, basically, is what it needs to do, is I need to rotate it. Some show soap. So the worst thing about the magnets in the base of this, okay, this is one of those oops moments I will retell. So these have magnets in the base, as you can see, right there, okay, and if you get them too close together, they push each other apart. And so I had 2 minifigs, one on each one, and they got too close together and they went flying into each other. And yeah, you guessed it, the minifigs went flying. They had, of course, sword blades, right? And of course, the sword blades flying into each other. It knocked the minifigs off. The minifigs went flying. One fell over. The other one went flying into the side of a shelf that I've got here, and little pieces broke off. And because of the force of the impact, the little pieces just didn't break off. The little pieces went flying, and they're still somewhere lost on the floor of the workroom. And I'd almost finished with them, with the minifigs, when that accident of the magnets not attracting, it would have been fine, I think, if they just pulled together. But no, they like flew apart from each other. And the rosin printed minifigs, the PLA is pretty tough. It's kind of it absorbs an impact, we'll say, without breaking. But the rosin figures, the minifigs that are printed on the rosin 3D printer, are brittle. And the smaller pieces, like arrowheads and sword blades, they will frequently come off. And then I will fabricate new ones with toothpicks, which, if given 2 or sometimes 3 coats of metallic paint, will hide the different texture of the surface compared to the rosin. Okay, I want to look at them from the top. Yeah, these look okay. These look like they're pretty well aligned. The other ones, like I said, I don't want to get them too close to each other because I don't want these to go flying. And if they went flying outside of this box, like fell on the floor, and one of those broke off, there would be, I would say, a 2% chance I would find one of these nozzles because they're dark colored and against the cement floor. No, not a chance. This particular one is just not aligning. I'm almost tempted to pull that off and try again. In fact, I'm just going to pull this off. Try to realign this in the sticky tack. But this was so much not working that I'm just going to start over. Just leave that in there. It'll probably hold against the new stuff. The pin on this one is just minuscule. Probably some of the reason I'm having so much trouble with it is that it's unusually tiny. Unusual in comparison with the other 15. Okay. Not unusual in any other sense. It's just not like the others, making it more difficult. Let's see if this sticks. It's going to stick. Maybe. To hold this. Yeah. So as I'm getting near the end of the stream, this usually happens is that there's a loss of focus. Okay. Kind of a sonic issue. There's a loss of focus and things just aren't going well. The upside here, the good part of things not going well right now, is that this stuff, even though it's pretty sticky, is not dissolving the paint, right? If I'd used regular modeling cement, it would just have been that would have been a horrible mess. That whole thing would have had to have been taken apart, sanded down, and pretty much redone. What I could say is that, well, I needed something to fill the last 15 minutes of the stream. So why not create a crisis? Right? That's it. Bumped the box, almost knocked them over. Why not create a problem that then would need to be fixed and used up the rest of the time? That isn't what I did here. This one just was not looking right. Just wasn't. And so I decided to just start over. And I can tell that, like I said, the problem is that this little location pin, which is pretty much all it's good for, it doesn't provide any real support, is minuscule in comparison with some of the others that did provide some pretty good support and guidance. late in the stream, losing focus. Things are going meh. It's definitely meh. Okay. Okay. Well, at least it's lining up in that direction better. It's still sagging some here. I think in the long run, meaning between now and next week, that was the right decision because it's aligned better than it was before. Just seeing little flaws in the paint. Okay. Yeah, there. I've got four attitude control brackets, each with 4 attitude control jet nozzles, more or less lined up the way they need to be for installation onto the sides of the service module. So they are now at the point where I should just leave them alone. Just leave them alone. But no, I have to touch them a little bit and knock them off the sticky tack. Do these? No, let's just rotate on there. I kind of hate to leave them standing on here because these could knock over and just undo some of the work that has just been done. But I don't have an alternative right now other than to try to not knock them over, which is going to be hard to do because I need to reach all the way over there, there, to get to the stream deck to end the stream. Thanks everybody for watching today, either live here on Twitch or some other time in the future. Not today if you catch it on YouTube because these things get posted. Whatever. They get shown on YouTube. And just to do a recap, I'm working on the service module, this component here of this Apollo stack. This bit, the escape tower, is done. This bit will be finished the next stream. The next stream will be next week, Wednesday, not Monday, but Wednesday, when I'll be finishing this by attaching the outside units to the service module. There's one that's a door that opens up, and then I'll be attaching these four attitude control units to the outside of the service module so that they look like that. Okay. That's what's going to happen next week, Wednesday. And then all the rest of the components of the service module are way over there where I put them so I wouldn't knock them over and make a mess of them while I was doing this. They turned out okay. So there isn't too much assembly left to do. I need to glue on 2 of these panels and have the other one hinged and make sure that the hinge works after the others are assembled, and then attach these 4 to the outside, making sure that they're oriented in a consistent fashion because they are not symmetric. They are asymmetric. Glasses over there too. I did all of this so that I could reach over these things and potentially break them. Anyway, I think it went okay today. Did I get much done? Well, I got these done. This took a while, especially since I had to redo them a couple of times. I unmasked the service module components that I had spray painted earlier and touched those up. I did some touching up on the rocket nozzle. And, oh yeah, I installed the tanks, these tiny little tanks on the inside of the service module door that's hinged. So what will be done on Wednesday is attaching these. Once those are attached, attaching these little nozzles. That won't take the entire stream. So what I'll also be doing on Wednesday is looking at the manual, the instruction manual here, is I'll be getting the pieces for this. These are very large pieces. And what they do is it's this bit. These wings fold down, and the lunar excursion module is stored in this unit. Okay? So there's this big ring, and there's 4 flaps and hinges. So what I'll be doing is pulling those pieces out and prepping them, filing and sanding them to get rid of the burrs and the flashing and little divots and things that come from the injection molding process. And then taping them, masking them basically, so that I can paint them spray paint. The insides get painted a green-gray color, just like the tops and bottoms of the service module, a gray-green color, and then the outside is painted the pearly white. And yeah, that's what I'll be doing on Wednesday. For those of you who get a weekend and live in the United States, have a good 3-day weekend. Those of you who have to work, thank you so much for the work that you do for those of us who aren't working. And I hope that you get an equivalent holiday in some fashion as well. Be sure to watch our Dungeons and Dragons stream Sundays at 2 with a live chat. And if you can't catch it then, they'll also show up on YouTube and as podcasts. So that's what Dice and Dungeons is a Dungeons and Dragons thing. So catch our Dungeons and Dragons show. Thanks for being a follower. If you're on YouTube, I think you can become a sponsor. And if you really like what you see, you can go to patreon.com/diceanddungeons and become a patron. And if you become a patron, you get access to our Dungeon Masters notes for the sessions and to our warm-up improvs, which run anywhere from 30 seconds to 7 or 8 minutes, depending on whether we continue to be warming up and funny or not. And also recently we have been asking artificial intelligence to write short stories or epic poems about the Dice and Dungeons group Midnight Brunch. And it has produced what we now call Hot Takes from Cold Reads, which is basically we read what it produced, and it's usually pretty awful. So it's lots of fun to watch those. And the only way you can get to see those is by becoming a patron, by going to patreon.com/diceanddungeons. Okay, I did my promos. Thanks, everybody. I will be back next week, Wednesday, with the final assembly of the service module and the finding of and prepping parts, doing more masking. Been doing a lot of masking on this model of the receptacle, this bit down here that holds the lunar excursion module. That won't take too long to do, other than I'm going to be doing a lot of masking, and then unmasking and remasking, and then putting these hinges together. That won't take too long, and then I'm going to start working on the lunar excursion module, and that will be a lot of fun too. So thanks, everybody. See you next week, Wednesday. Stay safe. Be good. Bye.